Jose Mourinho, the next Arsenal manager? A tactical analysis, a genius or a terrible idea? Before this video starts, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you get notified every time we upload a video. Also check out some of our most recent uploads, including our video analysing 3 central midfield options for Manchester United to sign in January, as well as our video tactically analysing how Brendan Rodgers has transformed Leicester into potential title contenders. Both videos will be linked in the eye above and in the description below. Also, if you like fitness and travel content, check out my friend's channel. He has vlogs on his travels to Bali and Thailand, as well as videos discussing the value of travelling, so go check out those, they'll be linked in the description below. With Unai Emery coming under increasing pressure, it looks like Arsenal may be considering potential replacements. Jose Mourinho has been mentioned as an unlikely candidate to take over at the Emirates, with many supporters split on the decision to give the fallen special one an opportunity to redeem his title. So what would a Jose Mourinho Arsenal look like? Well, like at all these other clubs, Mourinho would probably look to use a pragmatic, defensive orientated 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 of some kind. He's spoken about potentially using a 4-2-3-1 of sorts, where Aubameyang would be used as a wide forward on the left, with Lacazette playing as the system's central focal point. If Mourinho came in during the season, he'd probably only be able to bring in one player in January, so would have to work with the current squad. At centre-back, David Luiz's spot would almost certainly be lost. The Brazilian is far too aggressive in his front foot defending, often racing out of position needlessly, which is a disaster in a Mourinho system, as he likes to keep his backline deep, covering potential spaces where attackers could make runs into. The defensive midfielders are tasked with the job of pressurising players between the lines, so a centre-back like Luiz is not needed. This would leave Mourinho with Socrates and Holding as the only two competent centre-backs, with Mustafi a joke now and Callum Chambers better in the right-back position rather than centrally. The two fullbacks in a Mourinho side aren't required to have the same offensive ability as fullbacks in, say, a Klopp side. This is because the attacks aren't progressed down the flanks, which is why overlapping fullbacks aren't a necessity. Tierney would certainly be favoured over the less defensively capable Kolasinac at left back, and Bellerin and Chambers would have to fight out for the right back spot. Though initially I think Chambers would be the starter ahead of Bellerin, as he still hasn't got back to his form of the 2015-16 season and does look a defensive concern at times. We saw that Azpilicueta started ahead of Ashley Cole in the 2013-2014 season, and that Mourinho isn't afraid to use a more defensively minded fullback over a perceived first teamer, which is what I would predict would be the same with the right back slot at Arsenal. The midfield three would be Guendouzi and Torreira at the base with Ceballos in front, and the front three would consist of Lacazette through the middle with Pepe and Aubameyang on either flank. The reason why Ozil wouldn't be used in the advanced midfield position in a Mourinho side, because unlike at Real Madrid, Arsenal won't have the luxury of dominating every game, so when Arsenal are out of possession, the wide attackers, in particular Aubameyang, aren't going to drop all the way back with their fullbacks to create a flat five in midfield, as this would essentially turn Arsenal's best goal scorer into a left winger. This means that the midfield three need to almost play as a flat three, with all three contributing massively defensively. We know that Ozil can't perform this role. He needs to be played as an enganche in front of two defensive-minded midfielders, which allows him to sit in a front two when Arsenal are out of possession. Ceballos is a natural central midfielder, so can perform the defensive side of the role excellently. In possession, Ceballos will be tasked with linking the back six with the front three. He'll be the transition man, moving into space in behind the opposition's midfield, where he can receive the ball, dribble or play incisive passes to move the attack into the final third. Ozil could be an option if Arsenal are chasing the game, where he can play as some sort of link man role as Ceballos with less defensive responsibilities. Pepe would be an inside forward on the right, providing the ability to transition the attack quickly via his dribbling. Whilst he'd look to move narrow into half spaces to receive the ball, Aubameyang on the other side would sit high and look to make runs in behind the right back and right-sided centre-back, which is a similar role to how he plays in Emery's system. Lacazette's role would involve him dropping deep to receive the ball and link with Ceballos, which would in turn drag a centre-back with him and leave space for the two wide forwards to make runs into in behind the back line. So how would this sort of Mourinho system transform Arsenal? Well, certainly defensively they would improve. At the moment under Emery, their pressing system is dysfunctional. The front three look to press the opposition defenders extremely high from their build-up, but the rest of the team seem reluctant to push so far up the pitch. This leaves Guendouzi and Torreira with massive spaces to cover in midfield. When they retain their deep positions with the rest of the system, the opposition easily pass out from the front three's press, but if they push up high to a certain aggressive press, massive spaces are left in midfield for attackers to move into and receive the ball in. Mourinho's side wouldn't press aggressively, they'd sit off in a 4-5-1 and look to close off passing lanes into half spaces. Aubameyang would probably be told not to track his fullback all the way, allowing him to be in a great position when Arsenal win the ball back and look to counter. Torreira and Guendouzi are the exact type of central midfielders that Mourinho loves to use in a 4-3-3. Similar to Diarra and Khedira at Real Madrid, they have the athleticism and tackling ability to fulfil the role of ball-winning midfielders, particularly in big games when they are out of possession for the majority of the game. So how would this system play out for Arsenal? Well, initially I think there would be a new manager bounce, improving their form, which would be because of the increased defensive stability, which would stop Arsenal falling to pieces in the midfield throughout matches like they have versus Wolves, Crystal Palace and Aston Villa. Certainly against sides who look to dominate possession, this system will be effective, using Ceballos as a link man to transition the play, with Aubameyang and Pepe thriving when playing against sides who leave defensive gaps out wide for them to run into. Though I do think this Mourinho side would have the same problems that Mourinho's Manchester United had, which was the ability to break down deep defensive blocks, which will be the majority of Arsenal's games. Coming up against a side like Sheffield United, Arsenal aren't going to have the space in behind the back line for Aubameyang to run into, or the space in behind the midfield for Ceballos to receive the ball in. This would leave Guendouzi and Torreira with a lot of the ball and with the responsibility of creating. Both aren't the best at playing incisive passes through a system, so Arsenal would definitely struggle here. Mourinho also doesn't allow his fullbacks to bomb forward on the overlap, which is really going to make it hard for Arsenal to work the ball into the final third. The reason Nicolas Pepe has struggled so much so far this season is because of the lack of support that he has from his teammates' movement. At Lille he had Zeki Salik consistently overlapping him. This would drag the left back away from Pepe and allow him to move inside into the half spaces, where he could link with Ikone, playing 1-2s and making runs beyond the centre forward in behind the left sided centre back. At Arsenal, Bellerin, Chambers or Maitland-Niles, whoever it is, have lacked a dynamic offensive movement which allows sides to close off the space inside for Pepe to move into, which leaves him with the only option of going down the outside of the left back, which isn't his game. Mourinho's attacking system wouldn't solve this at all and probably make it worse. Pepe is a player who requires other players' movement and interplay in order to progress the ball into good positions. He isn't a Daniel James or a Gareth Bale who can use their pace to dribble directly past a player down the flank. So overall, would Mourinho's appointment be a good idea? No, it wouldn't. Even with a new manager bounce, I don't think Arsenal would improve significantly. The defensive stability of the side would improve with the positioning of the midfield and the pressing being more coordinated, but Arsenal's defenders are still pretty bad when it comes to individual defensive situations. David Luiz is a mess positionally, both Socrates and Holding aren't the best in one-on-one situations, and Kolasinac and Bellerin, when asked to play, still show defensive vulnerabilities. Arsenal also don't have the creativity from deep midfield positions required, as Guendouzi and Torreira are mostly ball winners rather than deep line playmakers, and with Arsenal facing deep defensive blocks most of the time in the league, breaking down teams is definitely going to be an area they struggle with. I also don't see the Arsenal board giving Mourinho the backing in the transfer market that he would want. He became frustrated at United with the rigid transfer policy, and at Arsenal they aren't going to be willing to go out and buy a £40 to £50 million top class centre back, right back and central midfielder, which is the sort of thing this Mourinho system would require. Arsenal are in a position right now where they need a manager who's going to be around for the next 3 to 5 years. He'll need to be able to develop players, as Arsenal cannot compete with the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool for world-class talent, so they are going to have to buy players like Ceballos and Tierney and be able to improve them to become those world-class talents, in the same way that Jurgen Klopp and Mauricio Pochettino have done with their respective clubs. Mourinho in the past decade has failed to develop players with huge potential. Anthony Martial and Paul Pogba are classic cases of players who struggled in Mourinho's structured systems, and when they lost form, instead of reassessing the system but keeping faith with those players, Mourinho was instead quick to either criticise them or take them out of the side completely, which led to both players experiencing stagnation in their development path. I could easily see the same thing happening with players like Nicolas Pepe and Saka, who would thrive playing in an offensive system where they had a degree of freedom and support in those wide areas. However, in Mourinho's systems, they do largely rely on the attacking brilliance of individual players in order to create and score chances, rather than the attacking patterns of the system as a whole, which is the prime reason why young, inconsistent attackers seem to have such a problem playing in Mourinho's sides. A manager like a Julian Nagelsmann or a Leonardo Jardim, who have a history with successful player development at the top level, can work with a sporting director and use systems which get the best out of attacking players, would be my ideal candidate for an Unai Emery replacement. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and share the video if you enjoyed it, And remember to subscribe and click the bell so you get notified every time we upload a video. We will be releasing a 3-part series analysing 3 centre forward options for Manchester United to sign this January, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that.